We all like to think of our legal system as a promise, right? A promise that if you're wronged, there's a way to make it right. A promise of a final decision that actually means something. But what happens when that promise just vanishes into thin air?
For one man, that promise has been stretched out over a quarter of a century. Yep, 25 years of fighting, of winning, and of waiting. And believe it or not, the fight still isn't over.
This is the story of Mahesh Mitra versus a powerful state authority. And honestly, it forces us to ask a really tough question, one that gets to the very core of our entire justice system.
So where does a fight like this even begin? Well, for Mahesh Mitra, it didn't start with a fight at all. It started with something simple, something powerful, the dream of starting his own business.
Just take a look at this timeline because it's pretty wild. It all kicked off way back in 2001. After years of legal battles, a final binding order finally came down in 2014 from the nation's top consumer court. That should have been it. Game over. But here we are staring at 2025, and the basic issue is still not resolved. A full decade after his victory, and he's still fighting.
And this is what's so staggering. The court's order wasn't complicated or vague. It was crystal clear. Give the man his plot. But for Mr. Mitra, this clear-cut win wasn't the end of his nightmare. It was just the beginning of a whole new, even more frustrating one.
Okay, so let's be absolutely clear on this. Mahesh Mitra had a victory in his hands, a final court decree. This isn't a story about someone appealing a decision. No, this is about what happens after the gavel falls, after the verdict is supposed to be final.
And this slide right here breaks down exactly what that victory was supposed to mean. The decree was final, period. It gave a direct order to the state authority, GNIDA. And critically, Mr. Mitra did his part. He made the payments, he complied with everything they asked for. He held up his end of the deal. On paper, there was no question about it. He had won.
And this brings us to the core, infuriating theme of this entire saga. His victory was real in a legal sense, but in the real world, it only existed on paper. This introduces a pretty chilling concept that kind of undermines the whole judicial process, the paper decree.
So what in the world is a paper decree? Well, think of it like this. It's a judgment that's totally legit, legally sound, but it's never actually put into action. It gives the winner absolutely nothing real. It's like having a winning lottery ticket that you can frame and hang on your wall, but you can never, ever actually cash it in. A victory that feels an awful lot like a loss.
And this chart just lays it all out, the huge gap between his paper victory and his actual reality. The court ordered a specific plot, possession, and registration. What did he get? A bureaucratic nightmare. Contradictory letters, weird offers for smaller plots, facts being hidden, and just endless delays. It was a masterclass in giving someone the runaround.
And you know what? The law is actually very, very clear on this. This legal principle gets right to the point. Illusory compliance, basically just pretending to follow the rules without actually delivering the result, is not good enough. You can't just act like you're following a court order.
And the result of all this? After more than 42 separate court proceedings just to get his original order enforced, Mr. Mitra still has nothing. No allotment number, no keys to the property, no registration document, not a thing. Just a pile of paper that says he won.
At this point, it became obvious that the fight had to evolve. When the system won't even enforce its own rulings, the battle can't just be about a piece of land anymore. It has to be about the integrity of the whole system itself. And you can see right here how the fight just kept escalating. It started out as a pretty standard consumer complaint, a deficiency of service. When the order was ignored, it turned into a case of contempt of court. And finally, it was raised to the extremely serious accusation of constitutional fraud, basically saying this was a deliberate abuse of the entire legal process.
This is what transformed the case from a personal dispute into a huge battle for our fundamental rights. And we're talking about the highest principles in the Constitution here. The right to equality, because he was clearly being treated unfairly. The right to livelihood, which his business was supposed to provide. And even the right to life and dignity, which a 25-year-long, pointless battle definitely wears away. So all of this brings us to the final, crucial point. This story matters. And it matters a lot because it's about so much more than one man and one plot of land. It really puts the entire credibility of our consumer justice system on trial.
There's a quote from the legal filings that just hits the nail on the head. It says, "This case is a litmus test for the credibility of consumer justice. It's a test of whether a final court order actually means anything at all.
a test of whether the system can deliver not just a piece of paper, but real, tangible justice.
So we have to end with this question. If a person can fight for a quarter of a century, win a final and binding order from a top court, and still end up with absolutely nothing but paper, then what is the real value of a victory? What does justice truly mean?